Hi, today I'm going to talk about how to make a custom playmat and obstacles for Star Wars X-Wing Edition 2. Hi, welcome to Gray Lightning, my video blog about making things and playing games. And I just got my second edition of Star Wars X-Wing, and I wanted to do a project. I did a project for the first edition, about how to make the rollers. So this is about this playmat and the obstacles that go with it. The playmat, I did the image on Photoshop. It's actually a real high-resolution image of the Orion Nebula, which I think is absolutely gorgeous. So I sized it to the 36 by 36 inches and sent it away to have it printed for about $75. And then I trimmed it myself. So I'll talk about how I did that. And then on the obstacles, the ones that come with the game are printed on these cardboard tokens that you lay out according to the rules. I wanted to do something three-dimensional to go with my beautiful mat. So there are two kinds of obstacles in addition to. There are meteors and there are debris fields. And so this is lava rock that I've hand-painted. I'll talk about that. The base here and all these pieces are designed on Adobe Illustrator and cut on a laser cutter, so I'll talk about how I did that and assembled them. And then the really important thing is that these need to be exactly the same size and shape as the original tokens, so I'll talk about how I did that as well. The best way to find a high-resolution image is to go into Google search and use the tools and look by the size of the file. So I'm going to say it needs to be at least 12 megapixels, and you'll see there's a lot of options here. You pick the one you want and you download it. Then in Photoshop, I'm going to create a blank document that's 36 inches by 36 inches. 300 dots per inch is the minimum quality you want to shoot for. When I drop this image in, it's actually larger than the one I'm going to create, so I just put it in place and shrink it down. This way I know that the resolution is going to be excellent for my image. I showed you the Bags of Love website in the Fortnite fabric video, and I'm doing the same thing here. I'm going to pick neoprene. This is a very high quality, thick neoprene, and I put in the 36 inches by 36 inches that I want it to be printed at. And then I need to import my artwork, so I upload it to the website. I drop it in. It fits exactly because I've sized it for that. I order it and it takes about 4 days to get to my house. I use my phone to take a picture of the actual obstacle tokens. I create an inch-long bar that I lay next to a tape measure in the picture and use it to size the photo to be to scale. Then I use my pen tool and I click around the outside of each of these objects and I select the anchor points and turn them to smooth, and that gives you these nice curves. This gives me accurate outlines for each of the obstacles, but for the debris fields, I also need an engraving pattern. And to do that, I'll turn these pictures of the tokens into black and white images. This is tricky because these aren't really very good images to work with, so I just use my magic wand and select around to try to get the best version I can of the debris. Then I go into select and I modify the selection and expand it by a couple pixels. Then I go into select and I select the inverse, which is everything else, and I create a solid color layer that is white. Now I kind of do the reverse of that. First I have to flatten both layers into a single image. Then I can use the magic wand again, select the white. Then I select the inverse and create a color layer and fill it with black. Everything that's black will be engraved. This is how my neoprene mat showed up at my house. I loved it. It was beautiful, but it has this white edge on it that I need to cut off. And luckily, I'm a quilter. If you know a quilter, they'll have these tools. It's a rotary cutter, a big ruler, and a cutting mat. I measured the mat and found that it was 36 inches one dimension, but 37.5 the other, and that's because neoprene is spongy and it stretches a little as it goes through the printing rollers. So I have to trim off the white, and in one side I'm going to have to trim off 1.5 inches as well. After you trim off the first side, you use that edge and the ruler to make sure every other cut is square with the last one. Always have the ruler over the part you want to protect, so if the cutter slips, you don't damage your project. I use 3 types of acrylic to make the obstacles. I use a 1/4 inch clear for all the bases and for the small 1.5 inch tall square stands. Then I use fluorescent orange for the debris fields, and this is the engraving, but I'm also going to cut a black piece and put it under this so that the engraving shows up better. I experimented with the engraving on the top, but then decided that, just as in my game tokens, it looks better with the engraving on the back, so I had to flip these images and recut everything. The lava rock I bought on eBay starts out beige, so to paint that I started with a base of dark gray, and then I used this dark purple to fill in all the holes so that they looked like little craters. I dry brushed on a lighter gray so that the dark gray would still show through. I put in specks of a lead metallic paint, and I put a bright silver on the edges of the craters. This is the final result. I'm not sure this is what a meteor really looks like, but it's certainly a lot more interesting than the rocks as I first received them. Lava rocks are pretty soft, so I have to put in square holes for my stand, so I used my miniature files that I use for my miniature models to carve out a hole that fit. Always use a dust mask when doing something like this. I use Weldon chemical solvent to fuse my fluorescent orange pieces onto the black backing. It only takes about 30 seconds for this to set, which is good because when you put the meteors on, you have to actually sit and hold it there for 30 seconds till it dries. I fuse the stands for the debris onto the base, and then when they're dry, I have to fuse the top onto the bottom. Doing it sideways like this is the best way I've found to make sure that the top and bottom were perfectly aligned. I love my colorful playmat, and it's unique, and it's much heavier than the ones you buy online. The obstacles look good with it, and they're sized well, I think, for the Star Wars models. I have lots of other projects for gaming and gamers, so if you're interested, please subscribe to my channel.